ever episode of the Circles and Squares News Report. I'm James, I'm your host for the day, and joining me, of course, is the esteemed host of the Circles and Squares Extra podcast. It's Kate. How are you doing, Kate?
I'm good. I'm enjoying my new title. It feels very powerful.
Very powerful. You got to update that Twitter bio, all the good stuff. Get the cred, the street credit. I think the kids call it clout these days, actually.
Oh,
so,
clout.
Yeah,
I thought clout was like getting hit. I mean, like clout on the ears, like an old guy hits you with a shoe. It's like to get clout.
What? Isn't that just getting clubbed? I don't know.
Clubbed?
That's really weird. Or cauliflower ear, I don't know. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Circles and Squares News Report. It's our third new show on the channel. So for those of you that weren't aware of the changes we made, I'll just run it through really fast for you. Of course, before we just did the Circles and Squares podcast, which was our bi-weekly show where we covered PlayStation games, what we've been playing, the news, and then featured topics. But we've since made a change here, and now this is our dedicated news show. So the news show here will be alternating every Monday with the Circles and Squares podcast, which will still include the other two parts, the games we're playing, featured topics. But now they're alternating, so you guys get content from us every single Monday. And on top of that, we also have another show, Circles and Squares Extra, which I mentioned before, which is it's not on a schedule, but that's our off-topic show. And so now we have a lot of content we're making over here, Kate, and we are excited to be doing so. So this is the news show. Like I said, we're going to get into the news in just a second, but I wanted to let you guys know we did have 2 new episodes come out recently, which of course back on Monday, October 18th, we had the Circles and Squares podcast where we talked about Metroid Dread and Destiny 2. It was a really good show, I think, and it was our first video podcast as well. So please check that out, as well as checking out our Circles and Squares Extra episode, which just came out on Friday. And that was our thoughts on Marvel's What If Season 1. And I think we had a really good chat about that show. And I think, I think it was one of those where it's like we enjoyed it, but, we have some hopes and some things they could change around for the second season. So go over there and listen to our impressions on that. But for now, Kate, I think we'll get into the news. So the way the show is going to work is we're going to have kind of a pseudo 2-part show. It's going to be PlayStation news for the first part of the show every week, or every week we do this show. And then following that up with some major announcements from across the video game industry at large. And then we're going to close it out with a feel-good story every week, which I'm excited to get to for this week. But let's start it off. Our biggest story for today is the first look at Tom Holland. We have the Uncharted movie trailer. I guess we've seen him in the role of Nathan Drake before, but we got the first look at the trailer of what this movie's kind of going to be presented like. What the characters are like, what they're doing, some of the plot points. So yeah, what were your thoughts of the trailer, Kate? How do you think this movie's going to pan out?
I want to be more excited about it, and I'm definitely going to go see it. That's not a question, but I am a little bit worried for this movie. I think it looks like it has potential to be objectively a fine movie, but I'm concerned about it as an Uncharted movie. And so I really like Tom Holland. I think he's great. I think he's a wonderful Spider-Man, but I think he has that kind of like eternally young sort of thing going on to him, and I liked when they cast him originally, and I don't know if this was ever confirmed or if this was just assumed based on what we expected from Tom Holland, but I always thought he was cast as like the young Nathan Drake. Well, when they do like I think it's number 3 where they do like the flashbacks and you play a little bit as young Drake. Yeah. And I think he would have been perfect for that, but I don't know if I really identify him as a like current time Nathan Drake. I feel like he's like a little bit youthful, and the arrogance doesn't come across so much for me. Like Tom Holland's a very like innocent kind of like, he's got that childhood, he's like perfect Spider-Man, like he can quip and he's funny, and I think he's also like a great pick in terms of like the physicality, because we know he can do like the climbing and like that aspect of the role. But I feel like he's just not like a jerk enough to be Nathan Drake, So
yeah, totally. And his neck's also not obscenely long. Like
that's the other thing too. Is does he have the neck for the role? And not everybody does. It's not Tom Holland's fault, but like Nathan Drake is known for having some length. So
just a little podcast inside joke for you there. Yeah, I think this movie is in an interesting place. I think it's honestly made me a little bit more excited for the movie seeing the trailer. I don't know if I was ever really very excited for this. Like to me, it doesn't. I'm not expecting a whole ton. Like Uncharted is already a popular and critically successful series of games. I don't know if we necessarily need a movie for it, but if they're gonna make one, I view it as more of like a side project than something that's going to be reflecting like the series as a whole. But I totally get where you're coming from with the casting of Tom Holland as Nathan Drake and his youth, and I think that's what I was kind of anticipating as well. But I just I guess they're just taking it in a different direction, really. Like to me, it's like Sully also is. I mean, I don't know if Mark Wahlberg really screams Sully to me. Just watching the trailer, I think that was the biggest thing I could take away of like I actually think it did a really good job representing like the set pieces of Uncharted. A lot of the things that happen in the trailer, like he's hanging from those cargo boxes at the back of the plane. He is, sees that pirate ship underground, which is from another one of the games. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff in there as well. But I mean, to me, it seems like they're almost making like a greatest hits of some of the craziest moments in Uncharted. But and I think it'll be fine for that. But as far as like the characterization, you're right. Like Tom Holland's a bit young. Mark Wahlberg to me is it's a weird choice for Sully. I just don't know if I see it. So I mean, it's weird because Uncharted is so based on the characters and their relationships that if they have the same set pieces, the same action, the same everything going on as far as like what they're doing, but then the characters are different. I wonder, like, I guess it'll come down to their chemistry on screen, right? But they're definitely going to be different representations of these characters than what we've come to know from the games.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also important to note too that like a trailer isn't always the best representation of what it's going to be like on screen. Like you can frame a trailer anyway to make it really give off a certain impression. So I don't want to write it off just yet, but I agree that I think I'm a little concerned about the relationship of Nathan and Sully, and not necessarily they won't have chemistry, but they just won't feel like their game counterparts. Like they both have very distinct personalities and they have a very like interesting relationship, and so I think that is what I want to see captured the most. Like the set pieces are really fun and they're exciting, and like, oh man, do I want to see the train sequence so badly. But like I don't know, I feel like any movie can do action scenes and stuff like that, and I feel like that while it is an integral part of Uncharted, like what sets Uncharted apart from any other action movie is going to be the characters for me. And I know a lot of people complaining like, oh, Sully doesn't have a good enough mustache and he didn't have a cigar, and like, yeah, those things are like kind of fun little details, but to me, like, I don't care so much the casting is what they look like, because that to me is not the most important part, but it's getting the feel of the character and getting their like identity and their personality right. And I think these two might do a good job for, just a movie in general. I don't know if they really feel like Nathan Drake when he's like, oh crap, like when all this like bad stuff happens to him. It didn't feel like Nathan to me. And it's a shame too, because I remember seeing around like I'm assuming this was like fan casting or fan speculation, but everybody was like, we want Nathan Fillion to be Nathan Drake. And I feel like
he did that like fan movie kind of thing, right? They didn't he make
right,
his
he did the
own
fan
little trailer?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There was a fan trailer, and I feel like he is perfect. So like in comparison with this newer take versus like what we kind of already have seen a little bit of, like I just can't help but feel like I would have maybe preferred some different choices. But it's not to say it'll be a bad movie. I'll definitely go see it. Like, Jeff the cameraman hasn't shown up yet, so I'm hoping he's their best character.
Yeah, it'll be cool. I'm interested to see like what other characters from the universe show up in the movie. Like I know Sam is mentioned in the movie, like because they have the ring, and Tom mentions to Sully, he's like, hey, my brother Sam. So obviously they're like name dropping characters.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, is there going to be a post credit scene with Sam? Is it going to be a flashback? Is he going to be in the movie? We just don't know, and so it'll be cool to see like what they pull from. They've got a lot of stuff from the games they could
my guess is that, and we know Chloe's going to be in there. We haven't mentioned that. She showed up in the trailer. I have a feeling that Elena is not going to show up. I think they're going to do Chloe as the kind of like romantic tension, and I feel like just in the time span of what you get for a movie, I don't think they're going to want to have time to do like the kind of triangle and throw Elena in. So I have a feeling it might just be Chloe in terms of the main female characters.
Yeah, I hope she gets a lot of screen time, honestly. I don't know who that actress is they have playing her, but she was I mean, I think that's Chloe, right? They never say her name,
It's
but it's
got to
got to
be
be.
Chloe. Yeah.
It's got to be. Yeah, but I mean, she looks like a good casting there. Like I think
Mhm.
she'll. I mean, I'd love to know who it is. We should have looked that up, but she looked like she was the part for the character for
Mhm.
sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we'll wait and see when that comes out. It's out next year, right? So we'll definitely be going to see that. Maybe we'll go together and report back
Mhm.
on the podcast here. But let's move to our second news story for the day, which is it's also film and TV adjacent. We had some from one Naughty Dog property to the other. We had some new images and videos from the set of the Uncharted TV show. And I don't know about you, Kate, but I'm so much more infinitely excited for
Yeah.
this Uncharted TV show than I am for or the Last of Us TV show than I am for
Right.
the Uncharted movie.
Okay.
I mean, part of it comes down to I think I'm more of a TV show person than a movie person.
Mhm.
But I mean, there's not a lot to go on here. It's just kind of neat to see, the first initial looks of like, hey, this is the set. There's all these cars that are kind of you come to expect seeing The Last of Us, like the highways all blocked off with those rusted out cars, and we get to see Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey and Anna Torv and all the characters on the set of what their costumes kind of look like. Pedro Pascal to me looks a lot more like Joel from the game than I thought he might have initially appeared like. I guess I mean I didn't know what to expect, but I'm really excited for this. I mean the cast is all star studded. It is. I know Neil Druckmann's also really involved with the production of the whole show. So to me, like this is just going to be very high expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with everything you said. If there's one that I have to kind of, stick my foot out for, it would be this one. And I agree. I think the show format just gives them more time to really like delve into a lot of the character stuff and get into the story. And I think the casting seems like really spot on for this. Pedro Pascal is like, I think you need to rough him up a little more. He's a little too pretty right now. Not that Joel wasn't a bad looking guy, but he doesn't look quite
He's
so
been through some
like
shit.
he's been through some shit. Pedro Pascal looks like he still has a little bit of joy left in his life, and we need to like crunch that out if he wants to be Joel. But I think it looks great. Bella Ramsey's awesome. They're both really great Game of Thrones actors. That's where I know them from because they're obviously the Mormont, and Pedro was what's his name? Oberyn
He was the guy that
Martell.
got the Viper, right?
He was the
Oberyn, yeah.
Viper, and he did an absolutely killer job. I know a lot of people know him from the Star Wars show, and he's supposed to be good in that, but I haven't caught that one. But this looks really good. The set looks fantastic. It's filmed in Calgary, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, very close by for us at least. I got my Tim Hortons coffee here.
Yeah, represent. That's right. So yeah, I think it looks
it'll be
great.
cool to see. I mean, with HBO, it's always a confidence booster as well. I was thinking like if these two are successful in any kind of remote fashion, I'm sure at least one of them, if not both, will be at least. I think they'll both be at least like monetary successes. But what other PlayStation franchises would you want to see? Like if they're gonna go this way? To me, I think I said it before on one of our previous shows, but I would love to see them do like a Ratchet and Clank kind of animated show. I think that some of the humor could really hit in that. They could show off a bit more of the like Last of Us is going to be obviously quite serious, and it would be fun to see them do some different genres. I think that would work really well. I'd love to see a set piece of Tsushima as well on the film screen one day. I think that would be just killer.
Tsushima is exactly where my mind went because it's based off of like old samurai films and stuff. It's really got that like film aesthetic to it. So it could very easily get turned into a movie or a show, or I almost could see it like it's like I think it'd be really cool to frame it as like a historical documentary kind of show and like do it as it's like still fiction, but it's like you could frame it in that way, which might be kind of neat as opposed to just like here's another samurai movie. But either way, I would just be super excited to see that come to life.
Same here. Well, we'll wait and see how these turn out first, and then maybe we'll get more in the future. But our next story is we're switching gears here now. We're done with the film and TV stuff for today, but we are not done with PlayStation properties appearing on different platforms. What a segue. God of War 2018 is coming to PC. And this, I think, has kind of struck some people as a surprise. Of course, God of War 18 is probably, you could argue, the most successful PlayStation 4 game. Of course, it's upgraded for PS5 and everything now. They sold almost 20 million copies of the game on PS4. I mean, this thing is just a huge success. So I'm personally just glad that it's coming to more platforms. Like, to me, this game is obviously one of our favorites of all time. It's in our top couple games. It won our bracket for our combined favorite game of all time, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, the fact that more people will get to play this on PC and just having it around in more places, I think, is only good. Especially when you factor in, some of the upgrades they're making. That if you're going to be able to get the resolution and the graphics and the lighting and everything even better on PC than what PlayStation offers, I think it's only a win.
Yeah, absolutely. This one to me came as a big surprise just because it's such an integral uh, franchise game for PlayStation. And it's not even that old, right? It's only like, what, 3 years old at this point? But it's only a good thing. I think exclusivity just alienates people. And I know, like, whatever, there's the business side of it, but I care more about the consumer side of it. So if that means more people can experience an absolute masterpiece, then that's only a good thing for me.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting though. You bring up how successful it is for PlayStation and what this game specifically and Kratos means. Like it is a bit surprising that
Mm-hmm.
this is the next one up in a certain sense because you thought, yeah, you might want to keep like this level of a heavy hitter exclusive to the PlayStation just to kind of build that brand. But there's the other argument too, like from a business side of, hey, Ragnarok is coming out supposedly
Mm-hmm.
next year. Like why not put this out again to
Right.
build up hype for the franchise, to get more people in? Maybe some of those people will be on the fence about getting a PS5 when the stock gets, more available later on. Maybe those people will be interested in then buying the console and adding PlayStation to
Yeah,
their, catalog of games. So it could be positive too.
that's true. I mean, if it's a win-win in that way, sure. And that's the thing, like, I see all these like clickbait articles. Like my Google feed is horrible for these terrible clickbait articles, and they're like, "Oh, which game is coming next?" And there's like no precedent whatsoever, and they're all like, "Bloodborne's coming to PC," and then you open the article and it's like, "That'd be kind of cool," and it's like there's no actual news whatsoever, and so I think it's kind of, I don't know, become a thing. Like people are like speculating and like assuming these games are coming to PC, and I've always been like, well, I don't really see why you would assume that. Like it's great if they do, but I wouldn't get your hopes up. But like, wow, this one is absolutely like no one thought this was gonna happen, and it did. So I guess it does open the gates. Anything could come to PC, and I think that's really cool if like Sony's comfortable doing that, because yeah, like you said, more people get to play the game. It's awesome. But at the end of the day, yeah, they probably want people to buy PS5s and pick up Ragnarok, and I'm just glad I already have one, and I'm gonna do that anyway.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. Do you think Bloodborne ever comes to PC? I know it's one of these things people have talked about so much. Does it come to PC?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I care. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. It would be nice. I would like at least an upgrade for PS5 is what I
I'm
would like to
shocked
see.
that hasn't happened at least. Just like
Yeah.
it just seems like such a win. Like there obviously must just be like, maybe they just don't have the resources to produce it, but you'd think it would just be an instant hit, like a
Mm-hmm.
major hit if they released that game again. Seems like a missed opportunity to me. But you never know. We might get some news on that in our next news story, which is that State of Play once again returns next Wednesday. And now that I say this, Kate, you know what? I really don't think there is a chance of something like that because they've simply said on the PlayStation blog here that this State of Play is focused on upcoming games, third-party games for the PS4 and PS5. And that's next Wednesday, October 27th. So we will be, I guess, on the next Circles and Squares news report episode talking about what is announced there. But yeah, what's your hype level for this, Kate? Are you excited for another PlayStation presentation?
Always. I'm always excited for PlayStation presentations, especially official state of plays like this. They always like knock out of the park and are extremely exciting. So I think this is a Wednesday at like 2 o'clock.
Yep.
So like I'm gonna be, the second I get out of class, I'm sitting down and watching this. Is gonna be great.
Nice. Yeah. I think for me, I mean, to the PlayStation Showcase they did last time, when it's branded as the Showcase, like that's the big one where you're going to see, I mean, the gloves are off then, right? You can really
Mm-hmm.
see anything get announced there. On these State of Plays, I mean, I like them too. I always like getting news about games, whether it's, the biggest stuff coming out from first party or if it's smaller stuff like third party indies, all that kind of thing. Like, I enjoy seeing all of it, but I definitely am not expecting to see, a earth shaking announcement coming out of this. Maybe a few indies, getting ported over, or maybe a surprise announcement here and there. I'd expect maybe we'd see some of that Final Fantasy game, whatever one that was with the emo guy.
Oh, the God Killer.
You
Yeah.
never know. Yeah,
Yep.
but it'll be cool to see. I mean, it's always an event you don't want to miss whenever they do something like this. So we'll talk about this more next time. And that will do it for the PlayStation section of the news show, Kate. Let's move along to our second part, which is other gaming news from around the industry. Starting off with maybe one of the biggest news stories we've had in a while in games in general, which is that the last Super Smash Bros. Ultimate character was announced last week, I believe it was, maybe a little longer than that, but it is Sora coming to the game. They had said, which was interesting, was when the game was originally announced, they had put out a poll of like what characters the fans want to be put in the game, and apparently Sora was the most requested character across the
Mm-hmm.
poll, and they saved him for last, brought him in. And I mean, I'm not a Kingdom Hearts fan. I don't really have much love for the series, but I totally respect it, and I think Sora is honestly like, I don't know, short of like Master Chief or like some absolutely ridiculous character, like who they could have put in that would have been a better choice. I'm not sure there is a better choice, to be honest. Just for what the fans seem to want and how big that franchise is. So, yeah, Sora, great addition. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm really pleased on this one. I wouldn't say I'm a massive Kingdom Hearts person either. I played the first game and I really enjoyed it. And I think the franchise is really interesting at the very least. So I think he's a fantastic pick. It's obviously what people wanted. I don't see how you could complain about this, especially as a last choice. Like, the polls don't lie, right? Like, he's not my most exciting character. He's not your most exciting character, but, like, it should be what the majority wants. And I think that's amazing that Sakurai and the Smash team really like prioritized listening to their fans. And it goes across, like, we got like Ridley was really requested, and like people really wanted K. Rool, I think, and so they took that into consideration as much as they could, which I really respect. They did a great job pulling him in, which they always do for every character. And my only sadness is that I'm going to be really disappointed never seeing any more Smash reveals, because even though I play the game kind of in bursts and I'll go months without touching it and then kind of pick it up for a weekend and then go months again, there is nothing more exciting. There's something special about those Smash reveals, and I almost get more excited about them than I do about an actual like state of play or like new games coming out. Like, there's just such like a wholesome vibe, and Smash is such a like, I don't know, it's just like a celebration of games at this point that it's like iconic every time they come up, and the trailers are always so hype and so amazing that there's a little bit of sadness in my heart that that's done with. But it can't go on forever, and Sora's a good pick. My only complaint, I think, with him coming in is I wish they'd gotten some Disney representation, because obviously, like, Sora's the main character, but you play the whole series with Donald and Goofy right by your side, and they're like as integral to the game as Sora is. And like 80% of the story is like Goofy stuff about how like their friendship can beat anything, and it's so like, we can do it, we're a team. And so I would have liked Gorge. That's right. Actually, 80% of the game is like Donald not healing Goofy, even though Goofy's sitting there being like, help, and like dying the whole time.
Oh my god, yeah, that's like one of my clearest memories of Kingdom Hearts 1 is like one of them's or Donald's always dead, and then when he's alive he doesn't heal Goofy, and Goofy just kind of tanks and doesn't really do any damage.
Donald heals himself when he's taken like 10 damage, and Goofy's like the tank dying. Like, they're horrible, but you just can't help but fall in love with them. And so I'm assuming that Disney didn't give them the rights to put in those characters, which is a shame, because as a final Smash, like, one of their team up attacks would have been really great.
I agree, and I think it's totally like you said. It's a matter of contracts. Like, I don't know the kind of hoops that they would have had to jump through to get Sora even in the game, but obviously it was, they had to do enough to get a character like that, to where Disney must have just been like, hey, use Sora. In the little intro video, they had a little Mickey Mouse head. I guess it's like a charm on his Keyblade, but that's probably the closest we're ever going to see to Disney showing up. But yeah, you're right. Like, it's a shame, but at the same time, it's such a minor complaint to have a character like Sora show up. Exactly. And in general, like, I think we just need to recognize, like, even if Sora is not for you, the DLC and the character lineup in Smash Ultimate is unparalleled by anything else that's ever crossed over. Like, it is ridiculous. We have Sephiroth and like Kazuya and Steve and Alex from Minecraft. Like, say what you want about Minecraft, but that's like a huge character to get. Like, it's just a ridiculous pack. We got Joker last time. the Pyra Mithra. Like you could just go on and on about all the different selections. And so, I mean, Smash Ultimate's just a magic game, and if you can't have the Disney magic, at least you have the Sakurai magic with the character
Exactly.
selection we
It's
got. So
it's an absolute just parade and fanfare of what gaming has been and currently is. And the only other thing I gotta say on it is I was really hoping my pick, I wanted Sakurai himself to be the final character. And I didn't think they'd actually do it. But there was a thing going around. It was like, put him in. And he shows up and he's holding like 2 GameCube controllers because he always plays both characters when he's like
right, yeah, and
doing
he's
the
like
little
he's like
test.
swinging them around or something.
And he's
Yeah.
like using both controllers. And I was like, it'll be so cool if you could have like be one of those characters that like can mimic other characters' moves. So all of his moves would be like different. He'd have like his up B would be like Kirby's up B, and then his like down B would be like Marth or something, and he'd like his whole moveset would like mix and match, and he'd just show up with his 2 controllers. And I think that would be so beautiful. But Sora's an okay second choice, I guess.
I would have thought I would have put maybe some like money on an outside chance of Sakurai having shown up as like a Mii Fighter costume or something.
Yeah. That would be cute.
I mean, it would be cool. You never know. Like you never know. We might get one random Mii Fighter costume of him one day. That would be cool.
I'll buy it. I'll buy it. The $2 that Mii Fighter costumes cost, I'll buy it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Kate, Xbox. We don't talk about Xbox a lot on this show, obviously being a PlayStation show, but we need to call them out here. Obviously, we love Xbox. We just played Gears of War, but it's Xbox's 20th anniversary this year, and they have a 20th anniversary event coming up late on November 15th, I believe, and they've got a lot of different promotions. I guess they're going to look back at the 20 years of Xbox, and I mean, not a lot of news coming out of this. Obviously, just wanted to shout it out and kind of, Xbox doesn't seem like it's that old of a gaming brand compared to a lot of the other ones that have, you think of like Sega, Nintendo, and Konami, of all these, long time brands in the space. But Xbox, I guess, it's up there now. Like 20 years is no slouch. Like that's a long time, and it's hard to believe it's been that long since the original Xbox, but it has. And so it's cool to see like a console stick around for that long when there's been so many others that have petered out over the years. Like, so yeah, congrats Xbox, and hope we get some good announcements out of the anniversary.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that they're not talking about or not like releasing new games, so there won't be any news that way. It's more of just like celebrating what they have. Maybe talking about Halo because that's not necessarily new. That's coming out soon. I think they had some like cool shoes that they're showing off. So, like,
Adidas shoes.
Yeah, I get some Xbox sneakers. That's nice. And I think it'd be really cool. I don't think they'll mention it, but just because we just talked about Smash, Master Chief did get in as a Mii costume. So.
Oh, true.
They've got that under their belt as well. But yeah, absolutely. Congratulations, Xbox.
And our final story for today, Kate, it is the Golden Joystick Awards for 2021. This is Game Informer's award show, which is on its 39th year, which is like, wow, that is a lot. Or 50 years of games, I guess, with Game Informer. But Golden Joystick is 39th anniversary, so congrats to them. 40 years next time. But we have there's a lot of awards they're giving out here at this show. Obviously, we're not going to have time to go through every single one of those right now, but I thought we would just go through and give our predictions and what we'd like to win for some of the bigger events. So I know you've got that list up. Why don't you take us through, and we'll make some predictions on the Golden Joysticks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start out probably my favorite award that goes out every year, Best Indie Game. So they've got up here for nomination Death's Door, Chicory, A Colorful Tale, Old World, Wildermyth, Bonfire Peaks, and Sable. So, do any of those stand out to you as who do you think would be your pick, and also who do you think is going to win?
This is a tough one. I actually haven't heard of Old World, Wildermyth, or Bonfire Peaks before, so I really can't speak on those. I'm sure they're great games, obviously, to make this list. To me, from what I understand, Death's Door and Chicory are probably the two that are most in contention. I mean, Death's Door, I think, got quite a bit of hype. Chicory was more of a small release that just kind of got amazing reviews almost out of nowhere. So I'm kind of pulling for Chicory personally, just because of that kind of storyline. Plus, I took Chicory in my Fantasy Critic League this year, and it got me a lot of points. So nice. That's nice. But I think if I had to say which is going to win, I think Death's Door seems like the likely pick for the victor.
Yeah, I think I'm on board. I've actually played 2 of these games. So I've been playing Death's Door recently. Probably spoilers for an upcoming episode. And I've also played some Wildermyth. And I think Death's Door is gonna take it. It is just such a wholesome and beautifully polished game, and it's a ton of fun. Wildermyth is a little bit more rough around the edges, but it is amazing kind of like interactive storytelling kind of game. Like it's half like a turn-based strategy and half like you just get these characters and sort of story gets like generated through them and like random stuff kind of happens, but like it's a very, very unique way of storytelling I've never seen in a game before. So I think I'd actually give it to Wildermyth just for doing something really unusual that I've never seen before. But I think Death's Door is probably going to be the safer pick because it's just so immediately apparent what the game is doing well. And it does those things fantastically. But I think Wildermyth is just, it's got some kind of quality that I've never seen, but it is something that you have to kind of play a bit of to really get a lot out of. So
Okay.
those are two maybe
I'll
games.
have to check that one out.
Yeah, those are two games I think I'll have to talk about on our main show in a bit more depth, but both super well deserving. Chicory is beautiful. The other games, yeah, I don't know tons about. So maybe
I've
I'll
seen
have to look
Sable
into
a bunch
them.
of times. It's on Game Pass. I've seen like, it seems to have like a cool art style. I just don't really know a lot about it, and so maybe I should check that one out too. Jeez, it's free on Game Pass. There's just too much, Kate. There's too much.
There's too much, exactly. PlayStation Game of the Year, there's Returnal, Deathloop, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil Village, Death Stranding Director's Cut, and Kenna Bridge of Spirits. And without even bothering to see what you think, it's Returnal. There's no other question, I'm sorry to tell you. Returnal is the most impressive game I've played all year without a doubt. I know some of the other ones seem really great. Deathloop looks fantastic. Kenna is absolutely gorgeous. But Returnal is just pushing gameplay, storytelling, environmental storytelling. Like, it's just absolutely blown me away. And it is without a doubt my entire game of the year, not just PlayStation.
Wow. Wow. Well, I guess don't bother listening to our Game of the Year show later in the year, guys. It's just going to be Returnal.
It's Returnal. We
From
won.
Kate, so yeah, you can do that. But man, this is a contentious category. You know, there's a lot of games that could win. I mean, I would say that Returnal, Deathloop, and Ratchet all have a chance of winning this. I don't think Death Stranding, Kenna's just a bit smaller. Resident Evil Village, I think people liked, but I don't know if they loved it to the
Also
extent
not
of some
so
of the
like
other
synonymous
ones.
with PlayStation, I think.
Well, that's the interesting part, right? Like, I mean, Deathloop as well. Like, we know it's PlayStation exclusive for now, but it's technically like an Xbox game from one of their studios, you know? So it's in a weird place. I think this one comes down to those three games, though. You make a really good argument for Returnal. I wish I had played more Returnal so I could talk about it. I probably need to do that before we get to our actual Game of the Year shows, just so we can have a better talk. Like, I personally, like, I'm going for Ratchet Clank in this one. I beat that game earlier this year. Absolutely loved it. I think it was really groundbreaking in terms of the tech behind, you know, moving around the map so quick, and so much happens on screen at once in that game, and it's just so impressive. It never has any technical hitches. It's always just a dream. Like, it plays like butter, and I think that would be my pick. In terms of what the fans will go for, it's hard to say. I mean, they're both great games. I think it just comes down to which one was more popular amongst the voters. So I think that's going to be Ratchet, just because of the, you know, the brand recognition and all that. But if Returnal wins, you know, good for it. I think it deserves it, and we'll wait and see.
We'll wait and see. Before then, we'll speculate. We've got Nintendo Game of the Year. So this is New Pokemon Snap, Neo: The World Ends With You, Monster Hunter Rise, Bravely Default 2, WarioWare Get It Together, and Metroid Dread. And I know you've played more of these, so we'll see what you got to say on this.
You know, this one is as powerful as Nintendo usually is. I feel like, as far as Nintendo Game of the Year, this is a really weak lineup in terms of like what is the best on this franchise. Like, Pokemon Snap, that's a really nostalgic game. Like, people liked it, but Game of the Year for Nintendo, come on, like, that shouldn't probably even be in the contenders, right? You know, just because it's Pokemon. I mean, for me personally, Metroid owns this category. Metroid should flatten the competition and just win this for sure. Like, Metroid Dread it's in contention for my Game of the Year, so that tells a bit about what we're going to be talking about on that in the future too. But I mean, I could see a world where Monster Hunter Rise wins. I think that was a really great version of Monster Hunter. I think it solved a lot of problems that the the franchise had in terms of getting into it for new players and just kind of the accessibility. It worked a lot better online than I thought it would too for the Switch. So there's some going for that, but I think Metroid just has so much going for it, and especially returning with a new game in the franchise after so long, I just don't see a way where it loses to any of these.
Yeah, exactly. I think my money's on Metroid Dread. I think for all the reasons you said. I think Monster Hunter Rise has a potential because I know that, yeah, it was really highly acclaimed. People loved it. The other ones I just don't see. New Pokemon Snap it's too, like, it's a nice, cute, wholesome game. I played some of it and I enjoyed it, but it's something that's nice and relaxing, but doesn't really stick with you once you're done playing. Neo is a little bit niche. I don't think enough people are gonna have played it.
Yeah, I think that's the case for all of these, right? Like
Yeah,
WarioWare, that's
Warrior's the
niche. So we
same.
like WarioWare, but
Well, I should get this game. I should get it together and get this game, to be honest. My WarioWare career
you
is
should.
very powerful, but yeah. And then the other option, Bravely Default 2, which I think could have had potential to be kind of the one of the bigger games here, but I feel like it kind of got released and I just didn't hear anything about it. Like, I didn't even
Yeah,
know that Bravely Default 2 was released this year, which is weird because I really enjoyed the first game. So it's something that I might play in the future, but I feel like it's been so quiet on news and reviews and people talking about it that either that's a really bad sign or, maybe I just somehow missed it. But I think Dread is probably the safe choice. It's new, it's exciting, there's so much hype for a new Metroid game, and apparently it is really holding up to expectations. So I think that's the safe pick. And then moving on, so we got our last kind of like specific Game of the Year category, which is the Xbox Game of the Year. And they're including Lost Judgment, The Ascent, Psychonauts 2, Microsoft Flight Simulator, The Artful Escape, and then finally 12 Minutes.
tough picks as well.
Yeah.
I haven't played really almost, well, I don't know. I played a few of these actually. I shouldn't say that. This is a tough pick. I mean, none of these again are like jumping off the page. It's not like Halo's here or Fable or one of the names you just gravitate to. 12 Minutes, as we know, we were both so hyped for, and I know you've played a bit of it. I played it, and it was not as good as I was expecting, honestly. So I enjoyed it for some things. Other things, I think it really struggled. I've not played Psychonauts 2, unfortunately. I've just started the first one to play through that one first. I know people love Psychonauts 2, though, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's what wins this. But my pick, I think, would honestly be Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've fooled around on that a little bit on my Xbox, and I suck at that game. It is so in depth. It's if I have no idea how to fly a plane, so I have a lot of learning to do. But the detail and the attention to like the weather systems and all the different planes and how they maneuver and the customization you can have and the depth to which you can get into that sim if that's your thing. I'm just blown away with that type of experience as someone that's never really had that type of game before. So to me, like, that game is just a masterful creation. It's a bit different than what we think of as like a traditional video game. So I would pick Flight Sim.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Flight Sim is definitely my choice. I want to finish 12 Minutes. I had some unfortunate save issues with that game, so I'm going to have to either restart. I got probably about maybe half done, maybe a little over, but I'm not giving up on the game, but it's just taking a little longer than I would have hoped. So I don't really know if I want to comment on that before I've had the full experience. But Microsoft Flight Sim is just an absolutely like groundbreaking game. I think it is so impressive for what it manages to do, and I don't think it gets enough credit for that. Psychonauts 2, though, I think it's a 50-50 between those ones. I know people are really excited about Psychonauts 2. It's another like cult classic that finally got a sequel after like 15 years or something. And apparently people just are absolutely loving it. So I think it's probably safe one of those two.
I think so too. But also, like, small outside chance, I've heard a lot of people mentioning The Artful Escape recently too, which is, I mean, I've not played it. I think it's kind of a very unique take on like an indie style thing. It's very, very beautiful visually. So I think that game's got an outside shot. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that game. I did look it up ahead of time before this, and I don't really recognize it much, but the visuals alone have really intrigued me. So that's something I really need to do my homework on, I think, before this gets finalized. But we'll move on. We've got the final game of the year, obviously. But before that, I just want to do a quick shout out. There's the Most Wanted game, and we're going to give this to Elden Ring again. So congratulations, Elden Ring. You're still the Most Wanted game. You have been delayed to February 25th instead of our original January 22nd. But that's okay. Take your time, come out and be perfect. We're really excited for Big Dark. I've worn my Dark Souls shirt today. If everyone can see, it's my Anne Rolando in celebration of Big Dark Souls. so that's coming. Most Wanted game, closed case. And then finally, the ultimate game of the year. Now they've done what I think is a strange amalgamation of games in this. So I'll read you out the contenders they've put and tell me what you think. They've got Deathloop, Psychonauts 2, Resident Evil Village, Ratchet and Clank, Wildermyth, Hitman 3, The Forgotten City, It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, and Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So
quite the collection.
To me, it feels like kind of a weird hodgepodge of games, and I think overall there's some good picks, good games in here for sure, but I feel like just compared to some of the contenders we've had in previous Game of the Year discussions, I feel like this has been a pretty quiet year overall for games.
I feel like this year is interesting in the sense that it doesn't really have one or two like locked picks. Like you can't just look at any game on this list and say this is for sure going to win. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting in that way, but I think we've had a large quantity of really good games this year, so it's still tough. I just want to back up for a second. Most Wanted game, Kate, it's God of War Ragnarok. Come on.
God of War Ragnarok. That. Yeah, that's a good second place.
Of course, yeah, of course. Anyways, yeah, this is an interesting list, and one thing I really like about Game of the Year this year is I think this is one of the years that I've played a lot more of the Game of the Year contenders than I would have in previous years, and especially when you combine what we've both played this year. We've played almost everything on this list aside from Deathloop, Psychonauts 2. Like we've played Resident Evil Village, was you, mm-hmm. Ratchet and Clank, me, Wildermyth, you, Hitman 3, both of us.
Yeah.
It Takes Two, I played Metroid Dread and the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Like we've got this pretty covered. To me though, I mean, my personal thoughts would come down to, again, having not played Deathloop or Psychonauts, that I would probably say right now I'm debating for my personal Game of the Year between Ratchet and Metroid. But tough call there. Mass Effect Legendary Edition, of course, like a great trilogy of games, but I don't think we can award Game of the Year to a remaster of a legendary trilogy as good as it is. Like it's not new.
No.
My feeling is that the winner of this will be Deathloop. I just think it's got a lot of promotion. It is a big kind of it is, for the time being, at least PlayStation exclusive. A lot of people have PS5s. It's probably one of the bigger games for, sales numbers this year. I just think that game has Arcane's pedigree behind it as well. And overall, I just feel like something's telling me it's going to be Deathloop.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really safe call. I think Deathloop is definitely the big hypeness right now. It's just got that cinematic, beautiful action look to it. It looks great. My pick here, I'm really sad to not see Returnal. And I know that I just have nothing but good things to say about that game. But I think part of what Game of the Year is for me as well is obviously you want a really polished experience. You want something that, was really fun and sticks with you. And video games don't have to be anything more than that. But I think when it comes to Game of the Year, I also looked and see like what kind of defined the year in games, what kind of pushed the envelope a little bit, what was new and exciting, what was a game that could have only come out this year and wouldn't have been made before. And I think a lot of these games are very kind of like safe games in terms of that. Like,
yeah,
there's not a whole lot of like pushing the boundaries. And some of them not so much. Like Wildermyth, I think is really unique and different. And like Ratchet and Clank, like you said, was an absolute like technical masterpiece. And Deathloop has some really interesting online functionality, which I think looks really neat to me. But a lot of these are kind of like just continuations on series that, Resident Evil Village didn't do anything new in terms of Resident Evil games, I don't think. And Mass Effect, like you said, it's just old games coming out again.
Exactly, right. And even Hitman 3, like I think Hitman 3 is a fantastic game and whatnot, but it's the third one in a series of Hitman games. And is it
Hmm.
really dramatically different than the second one? Like the other experience they put out?
Yeah.
Probably not dramatically, right? Like it's not like a brand new revolution on the series.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's a perfectly valid approach to game design, and it's amazing when it when the next game in a series comes out. But I don't think it's really going to be like something that people are gonna look back on and be like, "Oh yeah, 2021 when Hitman 3 came out," it's just not really
Yeah,
synonymous
exactly.
like that. So I think Returnal
So what's your pick? Returnal.
ugh,
Returnal's your pick, of
Returnal's
course, but
my
not on here.
pick,
So
but I just not enough people have played it, I think is the problem.
yeah.
So out of the games I've played, I'm giving it Wildermyth. And this is a game I really realized I haven't played in like a couple months, and I really need to go back and play more. But I'm gonna say I think Deathloop, yeah, is a pretty safe pick. I think It Takes Two, I also really have a lot of respect for and a lot of
Mm,
desire to play, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. So one of those. I know Psychonauts 2 is really big, and a lot of people are excited about it, but yeah, I don't know. This one doesn't just stand out to me and scream like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just biased because the last couple games of the year, like Sekiro and like God of War winning it, were like
yeah, yeah,
a little
yeah.
more to my
Well, see, it was
heart.
interesting
But
though. Like Sekiro, I mean, those. I mean, it's Game Awards, right? So it's a bit of a
yeah, it's a little
different
different.
beast. But I mean, I think Sekiro especially showed that year that anything really can win. Like it really depends on the voters. Like Sekiro is a great game. It's phenomenally made, but you would assume if you're doing some kind of predictions that like oh, not enough of the voting pool will have played it or beaten it because of the nature of the game. So you're always going to think it's probably going to be something that is not only a great game, but it's also widely played and enjoyed. So I think that while that would be like the safe prediction, it shows you that anything can win. Like I wouldn't be surprised
Mm-hmm.
if Psychonauts won. I wouldn't be surprised if Metroid won.
Mm-hmm.
It Takes Two. I don't know, but I mean any of these they're on the list for a reason, right? They're all good, but yeah, Deathloop I think safe pick.
Mm-hmm.
Kate, I think that will end us for the out of town scoreboard, as well as they like to say in sports. But we have one more piece of this show to get through before we're out of here for the day, which of course is how we're planning to end all of these news shows with a feel good story. And this feel good story for this week, I saw it a couple days ago on the PlayStation blog, and I knew I had to include it, especially for you, which is someone has made a fan-made trailer for a Cartoon Network inspired Bloodborne cartoon, and I'll leave the link to this in below in the description of the show for anyone who's watching or listening along. But I really loved the vibe of this trailer. I think it totally encapsulates that Animaniacs type of silly cartoon type of animation, but juxtaposed with the Bloodborne characters and everything. It's just a great time, and I would encourage everyone to watch this.
Is absolutely gorgeous. Like I must have watched it like 5 times in a row with the biggest, like dumbest grin on my face. I feel like every part you pause that at could be like a wallpaper. Like it's so beautifully done. And they have all the hits, like like Stupid Micklash is there, and like Eileen's featured in a bunch, and there's like her in the 100th. And we got Alfred with his dumbass wheel. And like it's just an
Yeah.
absolute treat. And this goes back to your point saying like I'm shocked they haven't like given Bloodborne a PS5 update, because it's like this game came out in like what 2015, I think. Like this game's 6 years old.
2015, yeah, it was
Yeah.
an early PlayStation 4 game
Yeah.
almost. Not
This
early,
game
but like
is
within the first half of the lifespan.
Yeah, so this game is 6 years old, and people are still making like Bloodborne cartoons, and it is like it has not died down. You go on and play Bloodborne, and like there's notes everywhere from people playing, and the community has not stopped playing this game or given up on it. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. And like I'll keep playing Bloodborne till the day I die, regardless of what I have to play it on. But if I had
You
an
died.
update until I died, yes. But like it's such a thing that people are passionate about. It's got such an amazing community around it that people are making these like gorgeous animations and TV shows for it. So like yeah, Bloodborne Kart's an absolute joke, but like somebody's gonna make it at some point. It's gonna be a real thing, and we're gonna have a cartoon. And like please like these creative wonderful people out there, thank you so much. Like I could never make something like this, but the amount I enjoy it is just like thank you.
I'm honored to be a Bloodborne fan, if only because this is my little window into the Souls community, which is like this is the game that I love too. And I always think back to and when you're playing Bloodborne, that first little area where you run into that group of guys with like the
Yep,
pitchwalks and the
the
torches, and
townsfolk,
they
the
look like
Yarnamites.
they're like a mob, right? And I just kind of view that as like that's the Bloodborne fan base at this point, just walking through the city protesting of like we want a remake,
We want
we want
Bloodborne.
Bloodborne part, like that's those guys that are just protesting, and that's what I always think of is like that group of enemies at the start. So let's hope they can keep those torches and pitchforks and get some of this stuff to become real one day. Get us some more Bloodborne, please. Come on, Sony, what are you doing? Kate, that's the news for today. That is the first episode of Circles and Squares News Report. So thank you all for joining us on this lovely journey. Of course, like I said before, we now have 3 shows: the Circles and Squares podcast, Circles and Squares News Report, and Circles and Squares Extra, all of which can be found on our YouTube channel. They all have their own separate playlists set up very easily and conveniently for all of you guys. And the podcasts are all in the same podcast feed as well. So subscribe to one, you'll get all of our content right there. But Kate, until next time, I guess we're going to leave the show. Now, let's just think about this. This show comes out on Monday, what is it?
25th.
What's the day? We should have looked this up.
It is the
Monday
25th
the
of
25th.
October.
And so it's the 25th of Monday as you're listening to this now. We'll be back again on the 1st with another episode of the Circles and Squares podcasts. So look forward to that, and we will see you then. And as always, thank you for listening. All right.